I'm Andrea Giles, and you're listening to the Healed from Infidelity podcast, episode number 149, The 3 Phases of Recovery. Hello, and welcome to the Healed from Infidelity podcast, where courageous women learn not only to heal from their spouse's betrayal, but to become the boldest, truest, most decisive, and confident versions of themselves ever. If you know there's more for you than the life you're currently living, but don't quite know how to get there, you are in the right place. Stick around to learn how to create a life that will knock your own socks off. Is it possible? It is, and I'm here to show you how. I'm your host, Andrea Giles. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to be talking all about recovery, 3 different phases of recovery. I have referenced in the past a book that I really love. It is called Infidelity, A Survivor Guide. The author is Don David Lusterman, and he is a therapist, a doctor. He had a PhD that did a lot of work around infidelity, one of the leading experts particular to infidelity. And I really have learned a lot from him, used a lot of his things, or have studied a lot of his things. And in his book, Infidelity, A Survival Guide, he talks about the 3 phases of recovery, and we're going to go through those today. Okay, so before I detail each of these things, I want to just say that it is not necessarily always in chronological order. In fact, often these things kind of interweave with each other, these 3 different phases. You can begin with one and then be navigating the third one, hopping into the second one. It's not chronological because we're not quite chronological, right? We are messy. We are human. We make progress in one way and then we digress in another, right? That's kind of human nature. And so keep in mind that this is not linear, but in general, this is kind of the way it looks for a lot of couples, for a lot of people. And so you will recognize a lot of things in here as it relates to you. Okay, so the first phase of recovery is restoring trust. And what this means is it's going to take some time to fully trust your partner. But out the gate, one of the biggest pieces that needs to be really hashed out, really looked at is, do I have enough information now to move forward with? Do I have all the important pieces that I need to have, right? So for example, if your spouse has said that you know everything, that you have the details, and then you happen to be going through a credit card bill and see a charge that was in some other place than where your spouse said they were at that time, and then you go ask them and you find out that there's more, you cannot really start building until it's all out, until you know all the things, at least the main points, like the main, where were you? How long did it last, right? All of those things. We're never going to know every single detail, nor should we. That can be really painful and harmful to know every single detail of every act of intimacy, all of that. But knowing, like, how many people, was it one? Was it many? What was the nature of the relationship? How close were you? All of those things. So when I say restoring trust in this phase 1, the trust was so broken that it is going to take time. It's going to take time, and it's a lot more nuanced than just flipping a switch and, okay, I trust you again. It's more in everyday exchanges of, he is where he says he's going to be. He got home when he said he's going to get home. The facts line up with what I'm being told, right? These kinds of things. And so with this, in part of this stage 1, phase 1 of restoring trust, it is when these things come up where you might see a discrepancy in something. And let's say that you saw that credit card bill and it was at a time where he said that he was in one place. He said that he was on a business trip in Idaho, and the credit card bill is in Washington, D.C. Okay. This is just an example. So in your mind, you might feel an instant little panic of going, oh, and then what part of restoring trust is going back to what you already know and going, okay, do I already have the information? Do I already know? Yes, I already know because he told me that on that trip where he said he was in Idaho, he actually went to DC and met her. I already know this. And learning how to regulate yourself a little bit so that even though it feels uncomfortable and it is a reminder, it is definitely a reminder, you can kind of have a chat with yourself first to kind of bring yourself down from any kind of panic, any kind of anger or rage that might come up in the reminder, so that when you do go and try to talk about this or just say, I was reminded today, like it just stings. Like I just was reminded that this was happening and I feel ready to talk about it in a calm way. And then you can go and say, I saw this today. I was reminded, it stung. Just to share, just to say, it really bothers me and I'm sad that I have to have these reminders. And part of restoring trust is how the other person responds. So it's how people initiate a conversation and how the other person responds. So an appropriate response from the other person would be, I am going to put myself in her shoes. I know she's been badly hurt. I know that my lying really hurt her. If I were in her shoes, I would see this as a reminder to keep my guard up. Like if I were her, it would be really easy for me to step back and get away. Like I'm going to put my guard up. I'm reminded that you did this thing. I want nothing to do with you. And instead she's turning to him. She's turning to him and saying, this stings and my instincts are to run, but instead I'm coming and talking to you about it. And he can see that for himself, a place he tends to go is getting kind of defensive and ugly at times when she makes these discoveries, because it puts him on the defensive, feeling like shame, guilt, all those things that none of us really like to feel. And so him recognizing this is where I usually go and I need to not go there. I need to not go there if I want to truly be there for her and show love and support. He also can remind himself that he needs to find the words to let her know that he understands how hard it must be for her when these reminders come up. Empathy, like I can imagine that would be really jarring to see that, right? To feel that. And also just the reminder that wherever this conversation goes, I'm going to be upfront. And any questions she asks, I'm going to answer as accurately as I can. Because each person was very intentional up front about how they're going to be, how they're going to respond, how they're going to be with each other. This is laying the groundwork for restored trust, of really taking responsibility for the way that each person is going to communicate, talk to each other, take a minute, right, to be really intentional about your own way of being, how you're going to show up before even opening your mouth. And in this example, because each of them had done their own homework, they were able to get through this encounter pretty seamlessly. They could see that they were making progress. They could see that this was different than what had been there before. A different way of talking with each other, a different way of approaching the situation, right? Both were willing to be honest and show vulnerability, right? Because she knows that sometimes he gets defensive, but she's willing, instead of turning away and putting up a wall, to turning to him and giving him a shot at being kind, at being empathetic, at being understanding. In the book that I'm referencing, one of the quotes in there is, honesty is the necessary prelude to trust. Trust is the prelude to intimacy. Okay, so if the goal is to get back to intimacy, or at least to see if you even want that with each other, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, honesty is the prelude. You cannot have trust without honesty first. You cannot have trust without first being honest and really saying, this thing that happened today, or driving by this thing and remembering. And here's the reality for all of you. These things are going to come up, sometimes years later, sometimes way down the road, where you're minding your own business and there's a reminder of how things were. And you have to go, oh, okay, I'm not there anymore. And how do I want to handle this? So something happened yesterday that I will share. And it's a little bit different of a situation, but I have mentioned before that when I first married my husband, I was not in a great headspace. I thought that I had healed a lot. I had done a lot of work, but I really didn't know what to do with some of the beliefs. I didn't know how to challenge my own thinking. I didn't know how to kind of set down all of the things that had happened. And it was when I found coaching and practiced the things that I was learning and really putting together all of the content and things that I have brought forward in my coaching program that I was able to really apply them to me and really shift and change. But when we first got married, in my mind, that had a lot of things that had not been healed or settled yet. His deceased wife felt in my mind like the other woman. Like that's how my body recognized it. That's how my body responded. So for example, if he was late getting back from whatever, I made up a story in my mind often that he was probably at the cemetery and just wishing he could be with her and longing for her and just wanting her back. And there were just so many things that came up. Valentine's Day was just brutal for the first couple years because she passed away on that day. And in my mind, he was with another woman. Like my mind made up a really strong story about it. And I was, of course, in a lot of pain thinking of that. And a lot of things had not been taken care of when we got married. Her stuff was still not really gone through. There were a lot of things that were very difficult to walk into. Yesterday, I ran into a sister-in-law and I ran into her and there were other family members there and one man that I didn't know. And she was introducing me to this man and she said, "This is Alex's wife," and then said Alex's first wife's name and not mine. And it was a little bit jarring. And her son was standing there and kind of like, he's like, "Mom, that's not so-and-so." I'm not going to say her name. "That's not her. This is Andrea." Like he was kind of taken aback by it too. And it was a moment of reflection for me of going, okay, in the years past, what would I have made that mean? And what do I want to make it mean now? I want to make it mean absolutely nothing other than that it was just an error. She knows my name. She knows who I am, right? And this is kind of the work of going back to what is current now when these things come up that used to be really painful or that maybe are still painful, but you have more current information. Like you can look at what's going on now and really get a take on if this thing that is really stinging today, like finding that credit card bill, reminding you of where he was, is this something to put my guard up about, to push this person away or to avoid this person or just put distance from this person? Or is this an opportunity to lean in and share and really see what happens when you talk about it? So in my case, again, different situation, but I called my husband on the way home and told him about it. And, we both kind of chuckled about it. Just like, man, she's been gone for 10 years. We've been married for 8. And we really just were able to just kind of laugh about it. Like, gosh, like it's so interesting what our brains do. And I'm, just let it go. Like no reason to get hung up on that. But in years past, it would have really bothered me. It would have bothered me a lot. I know that in those early years, I probably would have made it mean that she was more valuable or all kinds of things. And I just don't even want to give that any airtime whatsoever in my brain. One thing that does come up, unfortunately, in this phase is when there is new information revealed that you didn't know. And it can feel like you're starting back at square one. It can feel like you're starting over. And in many cases, you are. In this stage, how each person responds is really, really important. Does this revelation bring more clarity, more closeness, or more division? And often the way that we respond to it is where more division comes up. Now, I will say it is near impossible to really start building trust until this kind of thing does not happen anymore. I will say, though, that unfortunately, it's very common that more information is revealed. And you, my listeners, get to decide what you want to make of it. I do think that there gets to be a point where if you are being told left and right, up and down, you know everything, there will be no more surprises, and then there continue to be surprises. This is where taking some real inventory of the situation and am I willing to continue to put my heart at risk here is important. So this piece of starting to rebuild trust is more geared towards when you really have all the information. There might be tiny little details that you'll find out about, but not the big stuff, not like how long it went on or how many people or the depths of it or those things like that. It can be done. It can be done where there can be some new things revealed and then now we can get to work. It totally can be done. It's just a matter of if you are seeing that this person is acting different, showing you different things, and then you continue to find out more, it does make moving forward with that person that much harder because it can be that much more confusing, right? So for all intents and purposes, that piece that I just said is more for people who all the big stuff is out of the way, okay? And you're really moving forward from it. All right, phase 2 is reviewing the marriage. We can't really start doing this and having these discussions until there's some kind of trust. If we do not feel like our spouse is being honest with us at all, if we feel like we are being manipulated or gaslit, those kind of things, this piece is not going to go well because this piece requires both people's A game, both people to be mature, to be very adult, to be able to talk about hard things. And if one person is still really in a childlike frame of mind or a really reactive frame of mind, these conversations and reviewing the marriage are not going to go great. Okay, fair warning. So you want to be in a more stable place where you have practiced being able to talk to yourself before talking to them, like really getting your feet on the ground in the present with what's going on right now, today, and then going and having these discussions. So what to talk about in this stage, like in really learning to look at the marriage, review the marriage, see what happened. First of all, there are just some general guidelines of how to talk to each other. Okay, these are some basic things, but some that many of us were never modeled and don't come naturally. So I'm just going to go through them. Listen attentively to the content of what is being said. Listen attentively for the feelings that may underlie the content. Look directly at the person. Be aware of what your body is saying. If you shake your head no, your partner will feel it and shut down or become defensive. Draw your partner out as completely as possible, losing yourself in his or her feelings. Struggle not to answer what is being said. Your job is to hear, not respond. Avoid comparing your feelings to the other person's. If he says, I have felt so burdened by work and I have never felt that you cared, be careful not to say me too. Stop after a few minutes to paraphrase the other and if possible to describe in your own words what you think the person might be feeling. The talker must work to find words that are not inflammatory. Okay, so knowing words that are going to be more neutral, saying words that are I words instead of you this and you that can help things be a lot more neutral. Okay. Next, what to talk about. This is a big one. Really, you got to talk about your early marriage. You need to talk about your dating time. You need to talk about your early years, your early partnership, remembering how you met, remembering why you got together in the first places, some of the good experiences early on. For many people, by the time an affair happens, they have forgotten all of that. They can't remember it. They can't remember the good, that it was pleasant, that there were great things there. They can't remember it. They're focused on the negative, maybe on the last several years that have kind of led to the infidelity, maybe some avoidance of each other, some unresolved things. These are some of the issues that need to be looked at and talked through, okay? One of them, conflict resolution. A major cause of affairs is the failure of a couple to learn good ways to solve problems. That's a direct quote from this book, okay? And often the inability to talk honestly about feelings and thoughts that might be considered shameful or embarrassing makes it almost impossible to talk about problems. So in this book, he talks about this therapist, a family therapist. Back in the day, he's an old timer named Lyman Wynn. And he shares two ways that communication happens a lot in families. I think you will find that one of these is going to ring really true to you. The first is called pseudo hostility. It's the use of continual bickering and turmoil to help keep a relationship together. It may seem a strange idea, but some couples are so uncomfortable with deep feelings that they stumble on strange solutions. This is how pseudo-hostile couples have learned to stay together. They express all feelings through fights about things that are so unimportant that later it's impossible even to remember what they are about. As long as couples maintain their pseudo-hostile behavior, they can never even begin to talk about the things that truly bother them the most. So, of course, nothing can change and no problems can be solved. Okay, the next is interesting. Pseudo-mutuality. It's another way in which families avoid intimacy. Pseudo-mutuality families go to remarkable lengths to avoid conflict. On the surface, everything seems cheerful and smooth. These wonderful families that you see on TV that portray like the 50s, wonderful, happy families, right? But under the surface, important issues are constantly avoided. And unfortunately, the same with the pseudo-hostile families, the end result is the inability to solve problems. You're not solving anything, right? You're adding more issues to it by the very avoidance of dealing with these things head on, okay? As you heard those, which one do you find yourself more in? Did you stay more hostile and not talk about the real issues, or stay more friendly and kind and not talk about the hard issues? So what to do? Guess what? Talk about the hard issues, right? It can look like this. Each of you pulling out a pen and paper. Things that bother me. How do I communicate about things, right? You can start there. So for example, for him, things that bother me, she always seems more interested in the kids than in me. She seems so disappointed in my career. It makes me feel as if she doesn't really respect me as a man. She spends money in crazy ways. I'm always afraid we'll go under. How do I communicate about things? About the kids, I keep my mouth shut, but I boil inside. Maybe that's why I just disappear into the TV. About money, I shout and scream and I make fun of her. I guess I can be very sarcastic. About my career, I keep my mouth shut for the most part, but when she talks about how great other guys are doing, I'll probably end up picking a fight about something entirely different later that day. So he doesn't directly talk about any of it. His wife writes things that bother me. The only time he ever shows affection is when he wants sex. I hate that. And then when we get into bed, the last thing I want to do is have sex. I can't understand. When we were younger, it was so good together. He's so crude with the kids. He makes fun of them and puts them down all the time. Sometimes I feel like I've just stayed in the marriage to try to protect them from his sarcasm. The third, all he ever seems to think about is his job, how much he hates it, how tired it makes him. How I communicate about sex, I do anything I can to avoid it. When I do it, I kind of submit, but in a way that has to make him mad to know that that's all I'm doing. I'm not really there, just my body. About the kids, I don't say anything much to him, but behind his back, I side with them. I know it makes him mad, but because I do it behind his back, we never really talk about it. About his job, I make fun of his being tired all the time, but really I'm so angry because he seems more devoted to it than me. So isn't that interesting? For her, it's more that he seems more devoted to the work than to her. To him, he thinks that she has an issue with his job and doesn't respect him. See, that's where they're missing each other. And what needs to happen is changing the rules of communication, like going back in your relationship and going, okay, where did things start to go south? Where did we really start like pulling away from each other rather than to each other? And how can we change how we do that? How can we change the way that we address things? And for some people, they can go back to year 5 or year 4 of their marriage. Maybe there was a kid or two there, maybe got out of grad school and into the career, and there were different stressors there, and where both of your roles changed and you started going and fulfilling those roles while not really taking care of your role as partners, right? And being able to look at that is really, really, really important for each person to go, when did I start to feel neglected by my spouse? When did I start to feel like he was pushing me away? When did I feel like she was pushing me away, right? When did I feel like I needed to get away by spending money? This year 5 is when I started to wonder if I should have even married this person at all, right? On and on. And each person is going to have their own version of this, but talking about it is really, really important. It's really, really important to be able to talk about it and to be able to hear it, and to, even if it's really uncomfortable, being able to hear it so that you can examine it. And so you can decide what to do with this information, okay? Which takes me to phase 3, a better marriage or a better divorce. Not all couples are meant to stay. It is in this honest communication that you can really see, are we still a match? Not all people are meant to stay together. Even if you're able to up your game and talk more maturely with each other, not all people are a match. Sometimes in this phase, one person might go, I actually just really want to be alone. I really don't want all of the responsibility of being a spouse. I want to just experiment with different things. And the other person can recognize that that is not going to work for them. They might recognize that they have changed a great deal and no longer feel as compatible as they used to be, and that both of them really want to be in healthy relationships, but that they are not necessarily a great fit anymore for different reasons. Some people feel that there's been so much damage done that they just want to start over, that they want to have a fresh start with somebody new. And some people feel so much closer to each other after going through these first 2 phases that they recognize that they have something precious that they want to protect, that there's so much good there, that there's so much good that they deeply love each other and that they want to build on that love, okay? So in this phase 3, you're really looking at your options from a very mature place and looking at the things that matter to you and really naming what you want and voicing them in a mature way, okay? And you're acknowledging all of your options. You're really looking at, what are the options? What does it mean if I stay? What does it mean if I go? And really, there can be a way of ending a marriage, even with children involved, that do the least amount of damage to your children. And you showing up as the best versions of yourself is going to be able to help facilitate that. It's when both are being mature, both are being respectful and able to talk about things. They can actually still remain a family. It just looks a little bit different. You don't live with each other anymore, but you can still maintain being a family. The statistics show that most people who divorce do remarry, and those children become a part of what's called a binuclear family. That's the term for it. It means that it's still a family despite divorce, and that both parents are still very much involved, and that there are now other parents involved as well that can hopefully be a really good influence, right? And again, for many people, this work of getting better at communicating, being better at being honest, like really talking about all of it, like how did we get here? What have we avoided? What do we need to see in each other to feel like this is a safe place for me to be? This is a good place for me to be. This is a wise place for me to be. What are those things that you need to see? And once we can really pinpoint those things, that's where we can be in our best position to make the kind of decision that we can really get behind and feel solid in. Okay. All right. That's all for today. I want you to take a look at each of those phases, identify where you are, identify maybe kind of rank where you're at. How honest are you being? How honest do you feel your spouse is being? What can you lean into here, right? As a reminder, my program goes in great depth in all of these areas to help you grow your skill to be able to do these things at a really high level. And these are skills that you are going to take with you for the rest of your life. You will be much more skilled in relationships. You'll be much more emotionally mature once you go through my program to be able to handle all kinds of things that are thrown your way in a mature way. If you have not joined yet, please do. The doors are open. You can go to my webpage, AndreaGiles.com, to the Work With Me tab and come on in. I'd love to have you. All right. Take care, my beautiful friends. I will see you next week. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast. If you would like to be kept in the know about upcoming free classes, new podcast episodes, and other ways of working with me, go subscribe to my weekly email. You can subscribe at andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. Again, it's andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. I will see you next time.